Hey everyone, Bob here, KD4BMG. Many of you, like me, are in the middle of building the Coffee and Ham Radio's Artemis antenna. I'm about 3/4 of the way through that build. I did something last night that when I woke up this morning, I thought there's a better way. I just want to share that with you quickly in the event it's helpful to you. Isn't that a good looking antenna? Well, we're about 3/4 of the way done. I worked on it last evening and something occurred to me. We're used to seeing these antennas with heat shrink wrap on them. And once I place that on, we all know what we're going to see. We're going to see the ridges of this wire highly defined because that shrink wrap gets tight. My concern is that my zip ties protrude up and they have squared off corners. So I'm afraid that this is going to be a breaking point of my shrink wrap over time, my heat shrink. So I think what I'm going to do is change the orientation of these. So I have two options. I can slide this down so that the square edge, and it's tight, but it's loose enough that I can move it, that the edge of that zip tie is now at the bottom. But I'm afraid that heat shrink is still going to capture that. So here's what I'm going to try to do. We're going to remove this one and see if it works before we go on to the second one. What I'm going to try to do is orient this square section that basically tightens the zip tie, or I'm going to orient it on the inside here. So what we want to do is go down through the middle hole of the Artemis and come up the hole that's on the side here. Let's latch our zip tie. Let's start to pull it tight, but let's orient it with this squared off edge on the inside of the toroid. Now, I showed this in my build video, and I'm going to show you now. If you stick a pair of needle nose pliers up against that squared off section, you can hold it back while you're pulling your zip tie forward. Don't squeeze, just let that needle nose pliers be kind of a wrench that's holding that in place. Is that tight enough? That's pretty tight. So let's just make sure I have it snugged up. That's as tight as I'm going to get it. Now let's snip off the end of that zip tie. Now look at that. Now when we put that heat shrink on, what's going to happen? Well, we're still going to see the protrusion of these wires. They're going to be highly defined. That's what happens when you put the shrink wrap on. But these have rounded edges, so they're going to be less likely to puncture through that heat shrink. So, before, squared edge sticking up. After, the squared edge is on the inside of the toroid. Wonder if we can just slip this one around. Did I just do something unnecessary? Did I not? Well, that's on so tight. And so that's your call. If this is loose enough that you could just pivot it to the inside, maybe you accomplish the same thing. Thought I'd share that with you. This is how I'm going to build mine. I don't want to break through that heat shrink over time, so I'm getting rid of my squared edges here on the zip tie.